All right, beautiful. Let's begin. I don't want to take up too much time. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have everybody here. The whole entire point of today is to have a conversation about Latinidad and what belonging to the GSFP looks like, because we have been trying to make a few changes. The basic gist, the basic idea that we have here on the leadership team is that we understand that Latinidad, especially particularly monolithic representations of Latinidad, are entrenched in settler colonialism and white supremacy, and we're trying to break away from that. So, without further ado, Kayla, if you could go ahead and share our slides. Again, welcome everyone. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to hand it over to the fellows. You guys know what to do. Let's go.
Hey everyone, I believe I'm going first. My name is Gerson. I am a fourth year PhD student in biomedical engineering at Washington University in St. Louis. My research focuses on studying the effects of spinal cord injury. Um, and so, 2 points that we were asked to explain were our relationship with Latinidad. And so for me growing up in South Florida, I think it was always easy to make myself feel grounded in my culture and my community, especially through food, stories, and education. I've been able to connect more and grow. But moving to St. Louis and kind of removing myself out of the sphere that had kind of helped me feel comfortable, um, I've been learning to just plant seeds to grow community as I go through and specifically connect with my Latina community. And so one of the things that I've been doing in my professional career is kind of forcing myself to not assimilate, whether that means throwing in symbols and presentations that remind me of my culture and ground me to the work I'm doing, or just even making sure that I introduce myself with the correct pronunciation of my name, Gerson. So little things like that have continued my grounding in my Latinidad and my community. And this is where it led to the transition with AAHHE. My interest in it kind of sparked because I was looking for community and people who have specifically been able to stay in higher education spaces, mainly because it feels that, and maybe this might resonate with all of you, that we're not welcomed, mainly because these systems aren't built for us. So realizing that AHI existed felt like a great bridge between my program and the world outside with higher education. And so oftentimes I found myself really feeling included in these spaces and allowing me to jump out of my bubble that is like my niche field. So he has been a bridge to community and also a bridge to learning and grounding myself within the community.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can y'all hear me? My name is Haiti, she, her pronouns. I'm currently a PhD candidate at University of California in Irvine, and I'm in the political science department. For me, I think that has been kind of like a journey. I grew up in the East Coast, and so moving here to the West Coast, California, was very different. The experience of Latinidad and the embodiment of Latinidad. And I was already very critical of what that meant, like, and kind of using that as a very monolithic term. So being here has really made me push forth and identify more as Guatemalan, and pushing back against this monolithic and the dangers that comes with, having Latinidad, quote unquote. And because I was kind of like, okay, I still want to build community, right? The community that comes with being part of this collective. That's kind of my trajectory into AAHHE. I was like, I want community, and being in a predominantly white field, which I think probably a lot of us are in, I really just wanted to find like a sense of kinship and familial family that comes with it. And AAHHE was something that really stuck out for me. And I've been looking at it before. And my assumption was like, oh, it's very like higher ed people, just higher ed students. And I was like, let me just throw my hat in and see what happens. But this is my first year in AAHHE as a fellow, so I've been really enjoying it, and it's really balances out and reaffirms like my critiques and pushbacks of Latinidad, because there's a lot of people that also are in the similar boat as me. So yeah, that's me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sol. I'm currently a doctoral candidate in the Ethical and Strategic Leadership program at the University of St. Thomas in Houston with a focus on trauma-informed leadership, narrative identity, and equity in public systems. Alongside my academic work, I've served as an adjunct instructor in criminal justice and have experience in both legislative advocacy and public service across child welfare, investigations, and community health. My relationship to Latinidad is deeply personal and complex. As a first generation Latina, I was raised in spaces where both culture and trauma coexisted. I've often had to negotiate my identity between expectations, resistance, and survival. My parents are from Mexico, but recently I found out my grandfather was indigenous from Chetumal, Yucatan, specifically Mayan. So I'm used to being labeled multiple ethnicities because I don't present Latina all the time. So AAHHE was the first space where I was asked about how, I present related to ethnicity. And so because of the amazing push from our AAHHE leadership team, I really feel seen and understood. Um, and I was drawn to AAHHE because it creates space for that complexity.
Hello everyone, my name is Rodríguez Vargas. I am a graduate student in the University of Puerto Rico at Rio Piedras campus. I am PhD candidate in STEM area focused in biochemistry and organic chemistry. I create new drugs for with microbiology applications. So as a PhD student in chemistry, as a future educator, I carry a responsibility that goes beyond research. I represent a generation of Latino scholars redefining who gets to be a scientist, who gets to innovate, who is seen as a leader in higher education. And programs like this matter because they create spaces to us where our culture identity is not something to manage quietly, but something to engage, celebrate, to enhance our abilities and possibilities in our society. When we talk about remaining Latinidad, for me, it means breaking away from narratives of what it looks like to be a Latino in academia. So my experience in this program has been transformative because it validates something many of us know but rarely hear out loud. So this program is not only for higher education, also for STEM students like me who wants to be education in the future. So thank you for this program for being my new community. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Andrade. I'm a doctoral candidate in the higher education program at Rutgers University in New Jersey. My research focuses on financial aid policy, institutional communication, and how Latina undergrads make sense of complex eligible rules and shifting requirements. So my work sits in the intersection of higher education, public policy, and race. And I'm a little crazy and I draw on different theories, especially communication theory, and sense making to understand how institutions shape and often complicate students' access to college. So my relationship to Latinidad, well, I'm Brazilian American, and growing up in Newark, if you know anything about Newark, it has a really deep and hurtful history. And growing up, just going through that, I've always been questioned like, who am I? Am I, can I consider myself Latina? Because I don't speak Spanish. And so growing up and then finally being in spaces where I can explore that and find people who say yes, like the AAHHE community, like what we know in scholarship. So a lot of my research that I do now is trying to heal little Kelly, but also healing others whose identity is always put into question. Or even if, let's say, for example, you're part of that culture, but you don't speak that language, doesn't mean you're not a part of it, right? So I also work full time, so I'm a part-time PhD student, so I work 24/7 and I teach. And my philosophy has always been to empower my students, and I've been really lucky to be able to do that. So my relationship to Latinidad is always growing and shifting as I grow, as I learn from my students, as I grow from my AAHHE fellows. And that's why I have this interest because I'm tired. I was tired of being questioning myself rather than going into those spaces and seeing how would they accepting me and would they? And they have. Like, I love my fellows. Like, I can text them and be like, "Hey, I have questions," or "I need some help," and or "Can we do some writing?" And they are there. It's been a healing process, and I know it hasn't even been a year. It's only been a few months. And it's been so powerful to be in a space where you are valued. They do see you and expanding what is Latinidad because we are not monolithic. Instead, we're embracing all of our intersectionalities and empowering us. Just like what my other fellows are saying, we're coming in through different spaces. So I love it here. It's really a place um, that expands what you've been told or what you've been read to really challenge it.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Because I was having some technical difficulties earlier. Okay. So hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Ophelia Stamp. I feel like I have to use my middle name in spaces like these, but I am a PhD candidate at the Howard University. I'm in the Higher Education Leadership and Policy Studies program, and I am focusing on the servingness or support of Black students at predominantly Black institutions using the multidimensional conceptual framework of servingness, which was originally used for Latinx students. So trying to bridge pretty much both of my positionalities into my research. More of my relationship with Latinidad, I am half Cuban and half Panamanian. Racially, I identify as Black and ethnically, obviously, Cuban and Panamanian. And that is actually what drew me to wanting to be in this space of AAHHE, because I feel like as I've grown up, I had more friends who identified as Black versus identifying as Latina. So I have to admit, I feel like I didn't really start to build that real connection with Latinidad until I got into my graduate program and meeting Stacy and just other individuals that let little Jessica know or big Jessica know now that, we used to watch Mari Madre, and yes, you are a part of this culture and welcome. So it was just really resonating with me, the fact that we had similar childhoods, and girl, you are Latina. So I really do appreciate that. And essentially it's like that I was introduced to AAHHE before even knowing what AAHHE was. So that's what brings me here. And I'm just like really excited to share more throughout the course of this panel.
All right. Thank you so much to our fellows. We did handpick some specifically to talk about this because we knew that they have important things to share. So feeling very, very grateful that all of you agreed to be here today. We would like to move into our next slide, please. We would love to have a conversation with all of y'all now about this idea, what it means to be Latino, Latina, Latinx, what it means to have Latinidad constructed. We really envisioned this as a kind of like informal, all of us getting together, talking, so we can all kind of shape the future of AAHHE together. We have, let me see here. 38 participants total. We would love to hear from all of y'all. Do any of the fellows in particular want to get us started? If any of you are like dying to say something before we open it up to our público.
I want to say something.
Please do,
Um,
Jeremy. Let's go.
I think that remaining in Latinidad is not an abstract goal. It is daily practice of questioning, rebuilding, and amplifying. It is about making sure that no student feel they need to hide who they are to succeed. It is about ensuring that our leadership, our voices, and our presence become normalized, not exceptional. So, to the students listening today, the journey is valid. So, your identity is powerful, and your voice belongs in every room you enter, whether the room is a research lab, a classroom, or a national fellowship program. So, again, thank you to GSFP, FP for creating spaces for this conversation. And thank you all for allowing me to share my story.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Jeremy. Do we have questions from anyone that our fellows can answer for you? We have several generations of fellows here. We have 3 generations, so we are all happy to speak with you.
Stacy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Hi everyone. My name is Stacy Speller. I dropped it in the chat. I'm the current chair of the GSFP, and my heart is just so full seeing this group of panelists just share their story and how they enter this space, both like on a bigger scale, right, within Latinidad, but also within the AAHHE Graduate Student Fellows Program. I just have to highlight what Jeremy said in terms of reimagining Latinidad, right, as being this abstract. Like when we say reimagine, obviously we're conceptually thinking about what it could look like, but he said one key thing, right, is that it is absolutely a daily activity. It is action, it is work that we have to do day in, day out to see the Latinidad that we like know to be true, right? To know to be right and to be just, and to really mitigate the inequities that we know Latinidad has done like for forever since its inception. And so I just want to share that this moment, right, like having this webinar where we have the opportunity to be transparent, to be vulnerable, to be, just in community and kind of talk about the things that potentially were harmful throughout our years, right? Some of the fellows have mentioned some of the harm that Latinidad has done unto them. But then intentionally, what the GSFP is trying to do through sessions like this, right, so that we could debunk those narratives. And so the goal of this session, of, this space, and as we continue to, be in community, but taking action, right? Like continue to do, is to invite other graduate students into this space. Because one of the things that we definitely don't want to be is this exclusive kind of untouched group that gets selected and the organization is only in touch with that group. Yes, the fellows absolutely are a part of the programming, the annual programming, but we invite everybody, all graduate students into this space intentionally so that we too can have sort of these informal conversations that can potentially lead to things like what you're researching, things that you're discovering about your identity, things that, can change a conversation, with a peer, with a faculty member, somebody in your program, at your institution, in your community, right? This is about, yes, like thinking about what it could be, but also finding like the tangible ways that we can really insert ourselves in the change making, right? In the trailblazing in the space. So again, we're super excited to have you. Please, 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 like unmute yourselves. We want to hear from you. Who are you? What made you come into this space? Anything you feel like you can share is absolutely welcomed. And we hope that this isn't the last time that we're engaging with you. But thank you again.
And we do have a question in the chat. Let me scroll over here to pull it up. From Chiomara.
Oh, sorry. I think Kayla just put my mic on. I'm so sorry. Let me turn this off.
From Chiomara, I would love to hear from the panel on the concept of ni de aquí ni de allá, as it truly captures my experience of Latinidad as a Boricua born in the States. Go ahead, Heidi.
Okay, I was just like, I think I want to cut in case anyone took the question. I was reading as soon as you posted it, and I think it's one of those things that I got introduced to when I moved to the States. I was born in the States, I was raised in Guatemala. And once I moved here, they're like, oh, ni de aquí ni de allá. I was like, I know where I'm from. And I think it was one of those things I started hearing it within predominantly Latino communities, right? Because there's always that measurement of like, how Latino are you, right? How passing are you? Do you speak Spanish enough? Do you look enough? Do you eat certain foods? Like all these things. And it was interesting that this concept really comes about within the community, right? Of measuring who is in and who is out. And for me, a lot of it has been, I think, in the past couple of sessions, I'm still like a first year in AAHHE, but I remember one of the first sessions, it was about like decolonizing Latinidad and kind of breaking it down. And I think that that term itself, like, right, like those words, ni de aquí ni de allá, is one of those decolonial things, right? Of like breaking down of like, you know, what Jeremy said, like you are standing in Latinidad every single day, right? If you're critiquing it, you're challenging it, that's an every single day thing, right? You don't just do it one day, you keep on doing it every single day. And so for me, ni de aquí ni de allá is one of those things that always shows up, but it's also the way I'm understanding it now is really like, okay, well, going against it, right? Like, I know where I'm from. I'm raised in Jersey. I'm from Guatemala. I am critical of what it means to be Latinidad, even though it is also part of my community, right? That critique, I do that every single day. And so, yeah, like it's always going to show up, but I think it's one of those things that you have to push back against because you know who you are. It's just one of those things that's really I feel like it really exists in creating hierarchies within the system and creating hierarchies within this collective, and really pushing back against it.
It looks like we have Kelly and Sydney with hands up. Kelly, go.
Yeah, so that is a Spanish phrase, but I can still relate to it because I think growing up, it was like it's that gray area. I'm not American enough, I'm not Brazilian enough, I'm not anything enough. And to the point where I just got mad and I'm like, you know what? I am enough. We have the same food, we have the same amor, we have the same cariño. And what I try to do right now is because I'm also a teacher and because I also direct programs, what I try to do is to make spaces where people feel validated. So, for example, it's like where I can, I define what it means to be Latina, Latino, Latinx, Latinx, and allowing people to self-select. So instead of saying, no, you just have to be from here, let's just follow whatever the UN census says, which we all know is a problem, right? It just reinforces uh, horrible things. Instead, is like it's opening it up and allowing others with mixed views, mixed races to be a part of that and celebrating them. So yeah, like I'm Brazilian, I'm in these spaces, I don't apologize, and I love like I think what I'm trying to say is I'm gonna keep fighting and I have those around me who keep questioning and fighting and we just support each other. And that's it. I think it's just finding a community that supports you, and helping to dispel anything negative that comes around it.
Jessica, go ahead.
Hi, I think Sid's hand was up before mine. I don't know if she actually had a comment or it was up. Oh.
No, that
Okay.
was for me to just kind of check in earlier and say what's up to y'all and also show love as the other
Oh,
co-chair. Just kind of echo being a fan
okay.
of y'all and being excited for you. So you please go, actually.
Okay. I won't be super long-winded, but so I believe Stacy actually put it in the chat about Natalie. So once I saw the comment about ni de aquí ni de allá, I think I have a very different perspective because I think when this is brought up, it's a lot of people saying like, well, I'm not from wherever my family's country of origin is. Whereas for me, it's like, yeah, I'm not necessarily born there, but I really didn't feel that riffraff until I started school. So like, just for like, y'all getting to know me, English was not my first language. So I started school really not knowing how to speak English, only speaking Spanish, but this is what I look like. So it was very like, no soy ni de aquí, ni soy ni de allá, like, but I really am from here. So it was kind of like this level of confusion of like, girl, what are you? And I'm like, well, I'm Black, pero soy Latina también. Like, so personally, what I think Heidi said it, like, definitely continue to defend yourself and say what you got to say. And honestly, never stop discovering who you are. Like, I think that when it really started to hit me was like, I can't say I started to assimilate to the American culture because obviously at home I was watching nothing but Latin shows and I only spoke Spanish because I was being raised by my grandmother. And then I'm coming into spaces where it was like, no, I'm not watching Sister Sister, and no, I'm not watching Martin, and no, I don't understand what's going on. But it was like, who cares? Like, I watch what I watch. I identify as who I identify. I like what I like. And I honestly feel like the people that needed to gravitate towards me did. And those are the people that I built relationships with and friendships with. And then ultimately, you kind of like discover who you are in the or I discovered who I was in the process. And just kind of just building the different interests that I have, which is actually what even got me into education. And obviously now the dissertation that I'm even doing. So I think the way I would say is look at it as a journey if you're not already there or like actually in your journey, and just look at it as a beautiful thing. Like I can really define what I want to be in this process. So I think it's a beautiful thing overall.
Gerson, go ahead.
Hey, so bouncing off Jessica perfectly said that I think that very much summarized a lot of what I was planning to say. One of the things I did want to add is the sense or the phrase "nader aquí ni allá." I think specifically started resonating once I left my community and my little bubble. And so oftentimes when you enter these higher education spaces and you're meeting Latinos from either from their home countries coming directly to the US, or they've always grown up with a certain expectation of what Latinidad is. And I think my little Latinidad crisis didn't really start until I entered these spaces, mainly because of the idea of having to qualify my like origins and my roots and what I can actually claim as my personal experience. And so I think a lot of what Jessica said in terms of like this is a big learning period in terms of like grounding yourself in your Latinidad and learning to claim what you identify with and being strong and truth to that, I think is a big thing. And so the phrase neither de aquí ni allá, like I think is a phrase that maybe started off negatively, but has evolved to become something of empowerment and claiming it and showing that like you evolve as along with the term Latinidad, which as we've consistently said, isn't a monolith, and we are here to represent different aspects of it.
Beautifully said. All right. Jessica, did you have one more thing to add, or is that just your hand still? Okay, okay. It looks like we have no other questions from y'all. Please pop questions into the chat. Raise your hand so that we can unmute y'all. But I will also ask the panelists. About how you can speak to the shifting identity of AAHHE in the context of your time in the fellowship program. We have, again, several different generations here. So like Stacy, also feel free to hop in, just so we can paint a picture for everyone about what the shifting kind of identity of the AAHHE GSFP has been. Go ahead, Stacy.
Great question, Mitzi. Especially because of the like, the way we're approaching this webinar, right? Is for folk to really get a feel of where we are and where we're going, right? And absolutely, in terms of when I was a fellow in the program 2 years ago, um, I had a lot of reservations, a lot of hesitation to even apply for the fellowship just because of the harm lat predominantly Latino spaces have done to me, right? And so I'm gonna be honest, I want to know parts of being part of a predominantly like Latinx group. That just wasn't my, like, no me llamaba. It wasn't calling me, right? And just to give y'all a little bit more context, that is why I've only attended historically Black colleges and universities for my post-secondary education, because I really didn't feel comfortable being around white folk. And, Latino folk wasn't that much better either. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go where I feel wanted, where I feel loved, where I feel like I belong. And that was in predominantly Black spaces. It always has been that way. And just to give you a little bit more context about me as an Afro-Boricua, being born and raised in the Bronx, New York, that regionally does something, right? Like I consider myself a New Yorican. Like that in itself is its own, like it's very different than Jeremy being from born and raised on the island of Puerto Rico, right? Even though I too am Boricua, Jeremy and I's experiences are so different, right? And then being a New Yorican, that's more different than being a Puerto Rican from like Florida, a Puerto Rican from Chicago, a Puerto Rican from Cali, right? So with that being said, being in these predominantly Black spaces where I felt the most comfortable and where I felt I could be all that I could be. And so, the hesitation of being in a space like this was definitely an uncomfortable feeling, but I thank God for my advisor at Howard University, who just so happened to be a Venezuelan, born in Venezuela, but spent most of his time on the United States soil and did all his post-secondary education here in the US, and was very, very social. He went to UT Austin for his doctoral journey. And if you know anything about UT Austin, they've got a pretty dynamite Latinx like higher ed program. A lot of Latinos in higher ed comes out of that UT Austin program. And so he was socialized to be around a lot of Latinos, and he's done well in that space. And so he told me, you know, your research is all about bridging the gap between historically Black colleges and universities and Latinos. You got the HBCU part down pat. I don't know about that Latinx part. And I started laughing because he ain't lying, right? Like, you're right, Dr. Bermicki. Like, I choose not to be in those spaces, which is crazy if I'm saying that I'm trying to be a bridge between both communities. And that was the reality check I needed. AAHHE was certainly like the step I took to be in this space intentionally. And I'm so glad that I did. I am so glad that I did, because I will say that during that point, leadership was very instrumental and intentional about telling us what AAHHE GSFP looked like just a couple years before Mitzi and I started in the program, and where they were going. And I said, God, you so good, because you got me in this space at this time when all of this change is happening, and you know where my heart is. You know that I want to be part of this change. You know that's the vision and the mission. So it was like perfect alignment for me to have joined a couple of years ago. And then it's also what ignited me to want to even be part of the leadership, because I said, listen, if our foremothers and our forefathers in this program are trying to do this jump, we gotta move that torch forward. And so I took a stab at it and said leadership is the next thing. And I think that, who I'm leading with at this time that I'm leading is like, again, just a continuation of that alignment of where we are going when it comes to Latinidad, specifically just during your higher ed experience. Because we said we are not focused on higher ed grad students, right? It is absolutely interdisciplinary in that you've heard from so many of our different fellows who are a part of their different programs. But the one thing we do all have in common is that we are all a part of somebody's graduate school program. And so Latinos in graduate school, period, right, is what unites us. But then who we are, what we're doing, where we're going is what really makes this space so much more transformative. I'm gonna stop there.
All right, we'll go to Sydney. I'll share something out real quick, and then to Jessica. Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of would just want to echo some of what, can y'all hear me okay? I'm in a coffee shop. Okay. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to echo some of the things that Stacy said as far as the shift, as a co-chair. Some of the reasons that I was actually fearful of coming into the AAHHE space are actually now the reasons that I did kind of take the step forward to want to become part of leadership. And I think that right now AAHHE is in a particularly exciting, but growth can be painful sometimes, and also sometimes we need that discomfort. And what I'm really grateful in this space is, as we talk about transition, that we have folks that have leaned into that discomfort in kind of the AAHHE space, or specifically the grad student fellowship space. And I also kind of want to reiterate that, Stacy and I, if we were to be anywhere, this is the type of work we would be doing. Stacy and I very, very intentionally center the work of Black scholars, Black epistemologies. So, 2 weeks ago, we had Dr. D, speaking of UT, Dr. Ricardo Lowe, who does stuff on the census, is an Afro-Panamanian scholar. So what I want to name is particularly important for this shift is not just kind of questioning Latinidad for the sake of questioning it, but bringing in knowledges of folks to the fellowship space who are doing that work already, whether it be through the census, or I remember my first, thank you for dropping that, Stacy. I remember my first session of the fellowship was on Omi Sala Santa Cruz's piece, My Pronouns Are Fuck Ice. And I was like, oh, we getting into it. And I think that things like that, questioning, and it is a particularly important time right now for us to be having this conversation as a people, as a population, because of the particular climate we're in. I guess I just wanted to be sure I named that. Yes, this is great and this is beautiful and it's been a long time coming. And right now it's also particularly important for us for the way that we come together as a community in spaces like this and build a world kind of after this zeitgeist, and I'm gonna kind of try not to curse there, going on that we're kind of living through. But yeah, I'm excited and I've been really, really enjoying hearing from y'all.
Something that I just wanted to share too is that when I was a fellow, I went in with one kind of idea of what I wanted to do in my dissertation. And then a lot of things happened, and one of the things that kind of ended up being very lucky for me is that this tumultuous time in my PhD, I also happened to be a fellow. And so that gave me a lot of space to reshape my thinking. I had a lot of freedom. The dissertation that I'm currently working on is the participation of Latinos in white supremacist movements. So, what I was saying at the beginning of this webinar about Latinidad being rooted in white supremacy and settler colonialism, I don't say that as a cute little thing. That is my truth. That is the work that I'm doing. And I wouldn't have had the space to think through all of those things and to think about my methodology as coming from somebody who's so white passing and so centered in all these white rhetorics because I grew up in Idaho. So for me, AAHHE really gave me the opportunity to think through those things and to create that kind of knowledge. And it gave me a set of peers to think with in a way that my own department was very much not challenging my thinking. And then it also gave me access to AAHHE alumni. I really rely and cite the work of Dr. Jasmine Haywood, and I've actually gotten to meet her a couple of times, which is insane to me. So I'll have to say that for me, it was very important to kind of move into questioning all these things and pursuing this vein of research. And then what AAHHE did is that it gave me a community to actually do that work in a way that matters. All right, Jessica, go ahead.
I just wanted to add the perspective of someone that's not in leadership with what was being shared. So similar to what Stacy said, just by reading pamphlets or someone telling me about AAHHE, I may not have applied because I also do find myself in more Black, African American centered spaces. But one thing that I will say, just in terms of people who are in cohorts above me and now certain people that are in leadership, never have I ever been questioned by anyone at AAHHE, like, why are you here? How did you get here? Do you really speak Spanish? Like I said, in my PhD program, Stacy was one of the first people that, actually the first person that I connected with immediately and had a great time with her. And then shortly after, I met Sid and Armandito, like I like to call him con mucho cariño. Until this day, I feel like me and Armando communicate with all type of Spanish, Cardi B this, Bad Bunny that, Thalia this, Lucerito that. So I really feel like the people that make up AAHHE are really what have brought me into the space. And again, it's never, it doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel fake at all. It feels very natural, very like, oh, yes, Jessica, like, oh, let me sing you this, I'm gonna sing you that. Like, it feels very like en familia. And I absolutely love that. So I think it's one thing for there to be some form of shift, obviously, you know, in the structure politically when it comes to AAHHE and obviously leadership and what is being written in papers and bylaws and all the nitty gritty things. But I think it's very different when that love is felt very genuinely and it's being expressed to someone who may have not experienced that from individuals who I identify with so much. But it's just like, unfortunately, I live in I live in Washington, D.C., or I'm currently in spaces where just because I look the way I look, it's not really understood why I'm there, right? And I feel like with AAHHE, I have not experienced that at all. Granted, I've only been in the program for like, 3-4 months. But again, the love that I have for the organization is really stemming from the individuals that are in the organization before me and have really extended that genuine love. So very real out here.
I just wanted to add, just to include, because everything has been said, even from Jessica, is what I've come from a predominantly white public serving institution for everything, right? And what has been eye-opening has been the different speakers, has been the fellows from all over the United States, because honestly, knowing what was happening in California with ICE, right? And then comparing it to like what's happening in Jersey or what's happening with us, but in different parts of the country, it's not a form of comfort, but it opened to me like I'm not alone, right? Or there are different sources, or there is more there. Because for me personally, I don't have that much support. And when Stacy talked about like only going into HBCUs, I I struggled with where is my space because I don't see it. Um, but also what spoke to me is that other Latinos can do you harm. So even though we have shared experiences, we're not all perfect. There is colorism. There is so much otherism. And honestly, being in this space, hearing first that truth, but then getting that support and resource and cariño and all of that, it's kind of life-changing. It sounds weird, but it's just like there were parts of me I didn't know needed to hear that. And even from Jessica, even hearing from you, like it makes more sense when I'm out of my bubble. And this has allowed me to see other people's lived experiences and hear it and see what drives them, because I would not be able to see that within my own bubble here in Jersey, sadly.
Thank you, everyone. Stacy, can you speak to the question that we have in our chat? Go ahead.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, yeah. So, thanks for bringing that up, Monique, regarding the GSFP application as well as the admissions process. So, we will be hosting another webinar, two more actually. It's part of a three-part series, but the next one that's going to be hosted in January is going to speak explicitly to how you can submit a strong GSFP application, and we'll go through the application with a fine-tooth comb so that way you all have a really good understanding of what we're looking for and how to submit. But in terms of the history of the application that you all will be seeing come 2026, it absolutely is kind of like a rebirthed application. My predecessor and former co-chair, Luz Burgos Lopez, she was a graduate student fellow in 2021 or 2022. I'm forgetting which year, but then she became the co-chair immediately preceding her fellowship, and then became the chair the year that I was co-chair. So she was our co-chair when I was a fellow, and then she was the chair, which was my co-chair, my first year in leadership. And Luce was instrumental in revamping the application you all will see in 2026, right? Luz knew that if we are taking this program in a very different direction than we have historically seen it, then we've got to ask either different questions, we've got to add questions, we've got to take away some questions, right? And that was extremely intentional because one of the biggest goals was like diversifying the cohort, right? Like who we're getting. Historically, AAHHE GSFP has gotten um, a lot of Mexican Americans, specifically from places like California, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, right? Like the West Coast. And we saw that there was not a need there in those spaces within that racial ethnic identity, right? But there was certainly a need in our northeastern spaces, our southeastern spaces, our like Midwest, right? States and locations, even like Puerto Rico, if I'm not mistaken, and I could, don't quote me on this, but if Jeremy is not the first, he is absolutely one of the firsts Puerto Ricanos we have as a fellow, right? And that is because not only was Luz intentional about revamping the questions on the application so that we could see exactly who we're getting, but we also initiated a recruitment chair position within the leadership so that recruitment chair could be intentional about reaching out to institutions, so deans, professors, coordinators, right, student leaders who were in institutions that were historically not visible in this space, right? And so we've been putting in the work to try to put AAHHE's GSFP's name in all of these spaces where A, we haven't historically been in, and then B, to ask some of the hard questions like, not just, what's your race and or ethnicity, but also what's your sexuality, right? What is like, we ask very intentional questions about like your research interests and how they align with like the social injustices within Latinidad, right? Like we are not only looking for identity, what you represent, right? But also the work you're putting in, what you're writing about, what you're reading about, what you plan to do post doctoral experience, right? And that is, I guess, what Monique, one of our current fellows who wrote in the chat, is referring to. We've turned this admission process upside down so that we can then create spaces for folk who have been historically left out, right? That is why you see the fellows you see currently presenting to you as our panelists. And it is really, really an exciting time because we know as the current leadership, right, as we make our way out, that this is the next gen. These are the ones that are going to be in leadership next. And we just hope that we have instilled that foundational, like pass the mantra so that they can continue to open up the doors for folk who have, been historically left out. Thanks for that comment, Monique. I think that was incredible.
All right. I want to check in with the panelists again, just because some of y'all are being very quiet. Is there anything that you're like sitting on that you were wanting to share with everyone today? Okay, I was just checking. I was just checking to make sure. I didn't want y'all leaving here being like, I wish I would have said that one thing. We are at the 52-minute mark. Um, Stacy, did you also want to share some of our upcoming webinar programming that we have?
Yeah, can you, okay, yeah. So yes, so just real quick, amigos, amigas, amiguex of La Familia, our application is opening up January 6th of 2026. That's the first Monday, I believe. Whatever the first Monday is January 6th, January 5th. It's one of those. The first Monday of January, it opens up. And it will remain open until the end of March. So we are giving you almost 3 whole months to submit an application. The application consists of, the actual paperwork application and then two statements that supporting documents. And we are going to have a webinar that speaks to the application itself, the questions that we're asking, how to unpack some of the like the research statement, where your CV or resume, what it should look like, what we're looking for in those documents, and then also your letter of recommendation, right? Which we've opened it up so that it is not exclusive to like a faculty member or like a supervisor. We actually opened it up so that we can hear from like your community. So if you have a student who could speak to, who you are, or if there's a community member that you work closely with, given your the work that you do, right? Like it's not exclusive to what we would consider like a more formal letter of recommendation for somebody who kind of oversees you, but we want to hear from those who work closely with you, not on that kind of hierarchical level, right? So we'll have a webinar that speaks to that in January, and then we plan to have our final webinar sometime at the top of March, since the application is due by March 30th, if I'm not mistaken. We figured let's do it right at the top of March, like that first week of March, so that we can unpack with you. Maybe you started the application and you're stuck somewhere. Maybe, you have a question about one of the questions that the application's asking and you're not sure how to answer it. Whatever it may be, we ask that you bring those things to us at that March webinar. And it's almost like a workshop webinar where we can even like unpack like the research statement, right? Like we want to give you whatever you may need. We may even do like the breakout rooms so that way we can have maybe smaller groups because somebody's working on a research statement, but somebody else is working on their CV, right? However you see where the help is needed is what that last webinar is for. It's really for whatever you need it to be. And we just want to be able to be here for you in that way so that we kind of break this cycle of, what I feel is like Eurocentric white ways of fellowshipping as an admissions process. Like we're like, nah, we in this with you. We could work collaboratively, we could work in unison, and we want to debunk all those myths. Like reach out to us, talk to us, because we absolutely want to help y'all through this. And who better than the people who are going to be picking the fellowship, right? Like, so that's the goal for webinars 2 and 3. And in the meantime, if there's any questions, concerns, something that you didn't want to share in a bigger group and you rather share, more individually, we have our email. I want to say, I don't know if it's on the next slide, Mitzi, but we'll have like our contact information that we can drop in the chat. Oh, so yeah, no, not our email, but maybe we could drop it in the chat. And then because that's the best way to contact us, and we respond pretty quickly. If there's something more individualized that you'd rather discuss, and we can absolutely have that conversation with you and continue the conversation for as long as you need us to. So yeah, is that kind of good, Mitzi, for what you were looking for?
Yes, perfect. Go ahead and advance us on to the next slide, please. All right. Thank you everyone for spending time with us today. These efforts to kind of like start hosting webinars to try to expand our outreach, to pull all of these magnificent fellows that we have invited here today and kind of like share them with the world. All of that takes a lot of behind the scenes work. And so we're so happy that you guys were able to join us. Again, all of this was part of the effort to kind of continue to shift AAHHE in a different direction. Yeah, Stacy?
I see a question from Angeles Munoz. Do y'all
The one
can
that's the one that Sid answered?
Yeah, I just responded.
my bad. Thanks.
We've all been joking behind the scenes that we've all on the leadership team that we all share one brain cell right now. So you guys are definitely on the receiving end of that. Do please take this ¿cómo se llama? This kind of follow-up. We're collecting feedback from all of y'all. As we continue to kind of plan more webinar series, as we try to expand our outreach, any of the fellows, any of our panelists, if you guys are open to having people reach out to you, you might consider putting your contact info in the chat real quick before everyone pieces out. And I would also just largely like to kind of remind all of y'all that we have a lot of fellows here that are working on some dope research. Again, Stacy's work, very intense. I was kind of pressuring Stacy and Sydney to talk about their work. So please reach out. Anything to add, chairs?
Oh, thank you, Mitzi, for holding us down today.
All right. And I see some emails popping in the chat. So everybody, please take your screenshots.
And I'll also make sure that both the recording of this and along with the chat gets sent to everybody. So if you aren't able to save these emails, I'll make sure they get to you.
All right, then without further ado, thank you very much, everyone. This conversation has been a long time coming. It won't be the last conversation about this that we have. Everybody, please join me in reacting for again, our panelists today, our beautiful fellows. We're so happy that all of y'all are here representing us. Y muchas gracias. I hope you have a good day.